There's a moment, just one, where everything still seems normal, but something inside you knows it's not. I had that moment, and I ignored it. I still remember the exact moment it started, not the betrayal itself, but the whisper. The kind of whisper that doesn't reach your ears, but your bones. A quiet, persistent unease that begins as a ripple in the current of your life and, over time, grows into a storm you can't ignore. It began on a Sunday morning. I was back on leave after my third deployment overseas. This time I was overseas, 6 months assigned with a unit in the mountains, 2 months based near Bagram, and 1 long month wrapping things up on the outskirts of Kandahar. Clean up on the edge of Kandahar. By the time I got home, I was leaner, more quiet, more withdrawn. My wife, Emily, said I was colder. Maybe I was. Word is that to a man. But I was never distant. I always came home to her. I always came back. We lived in a small town outside Raleigh. Quiet place. White picket fences, barbecue Sundays, neighbors who smiled but never got too close. The kind of town where everyone knew your name but not your business. Or so I thought. My mother visited that day. She never came unannounced, but that morning she rang the doorbell while I was still nursing my coffee in the kitchen. Emily was in the backyard watering the flower beds, her face glowing in the soft spring sunlight. I opened the door and found my mother standing there, hands tucked into her jacket pockets, her eyes grave. "Got a minute?" she asked. I could tell something was off, but I nodded and stepped aside. She didn't take off her coat, didn't ask for coffee, just sat at the dining table like she was bracing herself for a difficult conversation. "Son," she began slowly, "I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I think Emily might not be fully honest with you." The words hit harder than a mortar shell. I didn't shout, didn't curse. I just stared at her, heart thudding like a distant drum. My first instinct wasn't anger. It was confusion, disbelief. "No," I said. "No, that's not possible." "She's different, Michael," my mother insisted. "You've only been home 3 weeks, and she barely looks at you. I've seen how she flinches when you walk into a room, how she avoids your eyes." "She's just adjusting," I replied. "It's been hard for both of us." "She's not adjusting," my mother said. "She's hiding something. I know it. I can feel it." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Not because I believed her, because I didn't want to. I wanted to dismiss it as paranoia, as maternal overprotectiveness. But something about her tone, it lodged itself into my mind like a splinter. Later that night, I sat in the backyard, beer in hand, watching the stars blink over the dark outline of the trees. Emily came out quietly and sat next to me, her knees pulled up to her chest. "You've been distant," she said softly. I looked at her. God, she was beautiful. Still the same woman I married 7 years ago. The same woman who cried in my arms at our wedding. Who waited for me through every tour. "Just trying to find my footing," I told her. "Being back takes time." She nodded, but didn't lean on me like she usually did. Instead, she stared straight ahead. After a moment, she murmured, "I missed you." I should have kissed her, pulled her in, and reminded her we were still us. But instead, I asked, "You been doing okay while I was gone?" Her response was quick. Too quick. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? That was when the first real crack appeared. A shift in the air. A change in rhythm. But I let it pass. You don't realize you're slipping into a mystery until it's already halfway solved, and you're the last one to know the truth. Something was wrong, but I hadn't seen the worst of it yet. For the next few days, I tried to shake off my mother's warning. I chalked it up to stress, to the awkward rhythm of re-entering civilian life after months overseas. Emily and I had always needed a little time to reconnect after each deployment. This was no different. At least, that's what I told myself. But it was different. And it wasn't just in my head. At first, it was the small things. Her phone, which once lay openly on the kitchen counter, was now always in her pocket or face down. Notifications no longer lit up the screen. She'd added a passcode. Not unusual on its own. Privacy's a right. But it wasn't the way she used to be. Then there were her late-night walks. Emily had always been a night owl, and sometimes she liked to walk to clear her mind. That never bothered me before. But now, her walks became more frequent. Always around the same time. Always just after we'd argued, or when I'd asked about her day and she'd responded with a vague, clipped tone. One evening, I watched from the upstairs window as she stood by the mailbox, phone in hand, typing with a focus I hadn't seen from her in weeks. She didn't look around. She didn't move. just stood there, the cold porch light casting shadows across her face. Then, after what felt like forever, she pocketed the phone and walked slowly back inside. She didn't notice me watching. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to believe I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe in her. A week later, I found myself standing in our bedroom doorway, watching her as she slept. Her breathing was soft, steady. Her hand was curled beneath her cheek, the way it always was when she was at peace. And for a moment, I felt the old love return, sharp and bright and full of warmth. Then I noticed something odd. Her wedding ring was gone. I stared at her hand for a full minute before stepping closer. There was no mark, no 10 line, nothing to suggest she'd been wearing it recently. It was just gone. The next morning, I asked her about it. She didn't even blink. "Oh, I took it off while gardening. Must have forgotten to put it back on." I nodded. "It's been almost 2 weeks since you were in the garden." She paused, her spoon midway to her lips, then shrugged. "I'll find it. It's probably in the bathroom somewhere." I didn't press her, but I didn't forget. That afternoon, I searched the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, every drawer, every cabinet. No ring. She hadn't forgotten it. She had removed it. But the question I couldn't answer, wouldn't let myself answer, was, why? One night, I was folding laundry while she was out. She had gone to meet a friend, or so she claimed. I reached into the dryer and found a shirt I hadn't seen before. A navy blue button-up. Men's. Too large to be mine. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the fabric, the starch still faint on the collar. No tags. No name. It didn't belong to me. And I was certain it didn't belong to any of her friends. I set it aside, unsure of what to do with it. I couldn't ask without tipping my hand, without showing that I was doubting her. Because once you show doubt, there's no taking it back. Later that week, she came home late, again. Her excuse was another friend meetup. But when I asked who, she stumbled, gave me 2 names, then corrected herself. "Jenna," she said finally, "and Laura. You don't know them." I didn't push. I nodded, said I was going to bed. She kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were cold. They say when someone lies to you, your instincts often catch it before your brain does. I wasn't looking for evidence anymore. I was waiting for the mask to slip. I didn't want to play detective. I didn't want to be the man who peeks over his wife's shoulder or keeps mental tabs on where she says she's going. That wasn't me. That wasn't who I was when I put on the uniform. And it sure as hell wasn't who I wanted to be now that I was back home. But there's a strange thing that happens when you live with someone you no longer trust. You become hypersensitive to everything. Every word she said, every pause between phrases, every glance that lingered a second too long. It all fed into that slow-burning question that had embedded itself in my chest. What if my mother was right? It had been 2 weeks since the shirt in the dryer. I hadn't mentioned it. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. I waited, hoping she might bring it up herself. She didn't. It remained tucked in the bottom of a laundry basket in the guest room, where I had quietly stashed it, waiting to see if she'd notice. She didn't. Then there was the perfume. Emily had always worn the same soft, floral scent. Something subtle, something you had to be close to even notice. But lately, that scent had changed. I caught it first on the collar of her sweater one night when we hugged. Something stronger, unfamiliar. I pulled away slightly, my brain ticking. New perfume? I asked. She shook her head casually. Must be from Jenna. She hugged me earlier. Jenna again. A friend I had never met. A name that kept coming up like an alibi rehearsed too often. Funny, I said, watching her carefully, how much she's become a part of your life since I got back. Emily just smiled. It's not that serious. She's been there for me when I needed someone to talk to. That's all. It was meant to sound innocent. It didn't. Something in her eyes had changed. There used to be warmth, playfulness. Now there was distance, caution, like she was measuring each word before it left her mouth. Then there were the phone calls. She had started taking them outside. Even in the rain, she would slip out the back door with her phone to her ear, huddled under the porch awning, whispering into the receiver like the walls might betray her. The worst part wasn't that she was doing it. The worst part was that I was letting her. I wasn't confronting. I wasn't asking. I wasn't demanding the truth. I was watching her lie to me, quietly cataloging every inconsistency, every misplaced item, every story that shifted when told twice. Because I wanted her to tell me the truth. I wanted her to choose to. But she didn't. One night, after she'd gone to bed early claiming a migraine, I sat in the living room with the TV off, the remote untouched. My mother's words echoed in my head like they had every night since she first spoke them. Emily isn't staying true in the relationship. I still didn't believe it completely, but I believed something was wrong. I believed we weren't the same, and I believed she knew I was starting to see it. Some people lie with their mouths, some with their eyes, but the most dangerous kind? The ones who lie with silence and expect you to fill in the blanks. Sunday morning used to be ours. No alarms, no appointments, no uniforms. Just 2 mugs of coffee, the paper, and the sound of Emily humming something under her breath while making breakfast. I used to think those mornings were sacred, our last remaining ritual untouched by the chaos of deployments of life. But now, even Sundays felt rehearsed. She was already in the kitchen when I came down, frying eggs, slicing avocado the way I liked it. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but she didn't hum anymore. That silence was louder than any music could have been. "Sleep okay?" she asked without looking at me. "Yeah," I said, sitting at the table. "You?" She nodded. "Had some weird dreams." I watched her back. She moved like someone aware of being watched, fluid but measured. She set the plate down in front of me, smiled like nothing was wrong, and sat across from me with her own. We ate in silence. Comfortable once, now oppressive. "You going to your mom's today?" I asked. She paused for just a beat too long. "No," she said. "She's out of town, visiting my aunt in Wilmington." That was true. I remembered her mentioning that. I only asked to see if she'd hesitate. She had. A beat too long, just like everything else lately. "Maybe we could go to the lake," I said casually. "It's been a while." Emily gave a tight smile. "I've got some errands to run." "What kind of errands?" She blinked. "Michael." I raised my hands. "Just asking." She didn't answer, just picked at her food. Something about the way she avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was just suspicion feeding on itself. Or maybe it was the way her eyes darted to the clock when she thought I wasn't looking. Like she was waiting for something. Or someone. After breakfast, she said she was heading out for groceries. I nodded, watched her grab her keys and head to the garage. A moment later, I heard the car start. I didn't follow her. Didn't check the odometer. Didn't install a GPS. I just stood in the foyer long after the sound of her engine had faded, staring at the door as if it might give me answers she never would. She was gone for 2 hours. When she came back, the trunk had groceries, milk, eggs, bread, a few vegetables, and a bottle of cologne I didn't recognize. I lifted it from the bag and turned it over in my hand. Expensive. A brand I didn't wear. "What's this?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Emily froze in the doorway. "It's a gift." "For who?" She hesitated again. "For my brother. His birthday's next week." "Didn't know you were buying him anything." She walked over, took it from my hands with a practiced smile. "I like surprising people." I nodded, letting her take it. But inside, something broke. Not because of the cologne. Because of her eyes. They didn't flicker with guilt. They flickered with calculation. The nights were the hardest. Not because of anything she said, because of what she didn't. She'd lay beside me, back turned, pretending to sleep. Her breathing was always too even, too controlled. I'd lie there in silence, eyes open in the dark, listening for some sign of honesty in the rhythm of her breath. But all I ever heard was distance. I started to keep a notebook. Not to build a case against her. No cameras, no spyware, no detectives. That wasn't my style. But I needed a way to sort through the things that didn't make sense. And Emily was full of things that didn't make sense anymore. March 7th. Left at 4:15 for book club. Returned at 7:40. Said they discussed The Silent Patient. She couldn't remember the author's name when I asked. She owns the book. March 12th. Grocery run. Came back with 2 bottles of wine. Neither of us drinks red. Still hasn't opened either. March 15th. Said she had dinner with her coworker Sarah. I texted Sarah later, just a casual, "Thanks for taking care of him tonight." Sarah replied, "Wasn't me. Haven't seen her since last month." I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than fragments. I needed certainty. But the more I waited, the more the cracks widened. She began dressing differently. Nothing outrageous, just a shift. New earrings, a new coat I'd never seen before. Subtle changes. Emily had always been casual, functional. Now, suddenly, there were deliberate touches to everything she wore. Not for me. She never asked what I thought. Never spun in the mirror like she used to. She started using a new lipstick. Not even for a date night. just 4 errands. One morning, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. I shouldn't have looked at it, but instinct overrode principle. Just one message. Same time today. No name. Just a number. No picture. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to see the rest. I locked the screen, placed it back on the nightstand exactly where it was. She came out moments later, wrapped in a towel, hair wet and skin flushed. She smiled, kissed me on the forehead, and got dressed. I stared at her, thinking about that message. Same time today. What time? Where? With who? I thought back to our wedding day, how she'd cried during the vows, how her hand had trembled in mine when we said forever. I'd memorized every detail of her face that day, the way she looked at me like there was no one else in the world. Now I wasn't sure if I could even recognize her eyes anymore. The worst part? I still loved her. Not out of habit, not out of memory. I loved her because I wanted to believe this was something we could fix. But she didn't look like she wanted it fixed. She looked like she was already gone. I'd heard once that silence in a marriage is more dangerous than shouting. At least when people are shouting, they still care enough to be angry. Silence. That's rot. That's the slow unraveling of everything you thought was stitched tightly. Emily had become an expert in silence. Her mornings were quick, movements crisp, answers short. Her evenings were filled with distractions. TV shows she didn't care about. Random cleaning she never used to do. Anything to avoid sitting down across from me and talking. That's when I started noticing the sound. Not an actual noise, but a pattern. The rhythm of her footsteps when she moved around the house. They were lighter now, like she was sneaking past someone she didn't want to wake. Even the way she opened doors had changed. Soft, careful, cautious. People think deception is loud. It's not. It's quiet. It slips into your life so gently, you don't even hear it until your trust is already dead. One evening, I came home earlier than planned. Emily was supposed to be out with her cousin. I walked through the front door, key turning slowly, expecting an empty house. But she was there. She didn't hear me at first. She was in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her phone propped up on the coffee table. Video call. I stopped in the hallway, just out of sight. The voice on the phone was male, low, calm, relaxed. I couldn't make out every word, but I didn't need to. What struck me most wasn't what he said, it was how she responded. Her laugh. Not the fake, forced kind she gave me lately. This one was effortless. Light. Real. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in months. And then she said, "You know, I wish I could see you every day." I walked into the room. She turned fast, face draining of color, snatching up her phone so quickly it slipped from her grip and clattered to the floor. The screen went black. I stood there. She stared at me, lips parted, breath caught in her throat. "Who was that?" I asked. "No one," she said quickly. Just a client." She wasn't even trying. "A client?" I echoed. "Yes. A customer from work. I was helping him with a project remotely. He's a little flirty." "It's nothing." I nodded slowly. "I didn't know you did video support," I said. "You've never mentioned it." "It's new," she said, too fast. "Company give you a work phone yet?" She hesitated. "No. So you're using your personal one?" Another pause. "Yes." I let that hang in the air between us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't press further. I just watched her. And I could see it clearly now. Guilt swimming behind her eyes, hands fidgeting with her sleeves, breath slightly too fast. She broke the silence first. "You're judging me." "I'm observing you," I corrected. "There's a difference." She picked up her phone and walked past me without another word. But something had changed. We had crossed a line. She knew I suspected, and I knew she was lying. After that night, Emily didn't try to pretend anymore. Not fully. Something had shifted, not in her actions, but in her energy. The guilt that had once flickered behind her eyes turned into something else. Something colder. Resentful. Like I was the one intruding. Like my suspicion was the real betrayal. We went on as if nothing happened. Eating dinner together, making idle conversation, talking about bills and groceries, and the new paint color she wanted for the guest room. But the air between us was thin, stretched tight like a wire about to snap. I didn't ask about the man on the phone. She didn't offer a name. And that silence? It became our new language. One morning, she left for work early, earlier than usual. Said she had a conference call. I waited until her car was out of sight, then walked to the garage. She had left her work tablet on the passenger seat. Normally, that wouldn't mean anything. Except she never left that tablet behind. Never. I opened the door, reached in, and picked it up. The screen lit up, no password. She must have been in a hurry. Or careless. Or both. The calendar app was open. One event highlighted in red. Tuesday, 3 p.m. S. Just a single initial. No location. No details. That same day, I noticed her wearing the same navy blue blouse she always reserved for nights out. The same one she wore on our anniversary the year before. Only now, she wore it on a Tuesday for work. Her perfume was stronger that day. Her makeup a little more defined. I didn't ask questions. I started cooking dinner, even though I knew she wouldn't be home on time. She arrived at 7:48 p.m., hair tousled, lipstick smudged just slightly. No explanation. When she saw the table, steak, potatoes, salad, wine, her face changed. Just for a second. It wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. I didn't know we were having dinner together, she said. We always have dinner together, I replied. Unless you're busy. She sat down slowly, her fork scraping against the plate. We ate in silence. Afterward, she went upstairs. Said she was tired. I sat there long after the dishes were cleared, sipping wine I didn't want. Thinking. There was no confession coming. No tearful breakdown. No apology. I had waited for it. Hoped for it. In some twisted part of myself. But it wouldn't come. Not from her. I found her wedding ring the next day. It was in the drawer of her vanity. Buried under a stack of makeup wipes and old receipts. Hidden, but not lost. She hadn't forgotten it. She'd just decided it no longer belonged on her finger. I didn't say anything. I just left it where I found it. Let her know I'd seen it. That night, she didn't speak a word to me. And for the first time, I realized we weren't in a marriage anymore. We were in a standoff. It was raining that Thursday. The kind of rain that taps on your windows like it's trying to whisper something. I'd been sitting in the truck for almost 40 minutes, parked 2 blocks from Emily's office. Engine off, watching the building through the blur of windshield wipers. This wasn't stalking. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even paranoia anymore. It was clarity. Something inside me had accepted the truth long before I had the courage to face it. I wasn't there to catch her in the act. I was there to end the pretending. At exactly 5:27 p.m., she walked out of the side entrance. No umbrella. Hair down. Phone in hand. She wasn't alone. A man stepped out just after her. Tall, mid-30s, clean-shaven, confident. The kind of confidence that doesn't come from ego, but from knowing something no one else does. Emily turned slightly toward him. Their bodies angled too close. Her hand touched his wrist lightly. Barely a graze. But it was the kind of touch that carried memory. Familiarity. Ownership. She smiled. Not the polite, professional kind. The smile you give someone when your guard is down. They spoke briefly, and then she turned and walked toward her car. He stayed back, leaning against the doorway, watching her go. That was enough. I didn't follow her home. I didn't confront her there. I waited until Saturday. A day she couldn't excuse away with work. A day I knew she'd have nowhere else to be. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, pouring coffee, humming again. The hum returned. It disgusted me. We need to talk, I said. She turned, mug in hand. What about you and him? She didn't flinch. Not even a blink. What are you talking about? She said, but the lie was lazy. I saw you on Thursday, I said calmly. You didn't see me. I was parked across the street. Watching. Still no panic. Just a soft exhale, like someone deciding not to keep up the act anymore. Okay, she said finally, setting the mug down. You saw me. I want a name. She hesitated, then looked me dead in the eye. Samuel. I repeated the name in my head. I didn't know a Samuel. Didn't need to. How long? Her eyes drifted to the window. Rain again. The kind that doesn't stop. Since December, she said. We met at work. That's 3 months before I got home. A nod. I let it hang there. Let her feel it. Then I asked the one question I had tried to suppress for weeks. Do you love him? She took longer to answer that one. I don't know. You don't know? She shook her head, voice suddenly small. I didn't plan for it to happen. That line. That coward's line. I didn't plan for it to happen. Like that makes anything better. Did you plan to take off your ring? I asked. She swallowed hard. I didn't want to lie anymore. You're still lying, I said. You lied every single day you came home to me. She said nothing. You let me love you. I continued, voice low now steady. You let me make breakfast. You let me hold your hand. You let me come back to this house, to this lie. I didn't know how to end it. You just did, I said. I pulled the drawer beside the dining table open, took out the envelope I had placed there the night before. Inside were the signed divorce papers. I had gone to a lawyer the moment I saw her touch that man's wrist. That was the moment everything became real. I slid the envelope across the table. I've already filed, I said. She stared at it like it was a weapon. This doesn't have to be ugly, I added. But I won't let you pretend anymore. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. That privilege was gone. The house was quieter after that conversation, not peaceful, just emptied. She slept in the guest room without me asking. I didn't need to lock the door. The space between us had become a wall no one tried to climb. The days stretched long. We coexisted like strangers bound by the same roof, orbiting the same rooms without touching. I went to work. She made herself busy. I'd hear the vacuum run in the middle of the night. Dishes clinked at odd hours, the sound of the shower when no one needed to be clean. She was trying to scrub the guilt away. Too little. Too late. The papers sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days before she finally signed them. She left them beside the coffee maker with a note. I'm sorry it ended like this. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. And if there was, it wouldn't change a thing. The morning after she signed them, she left. No dramatic exit. No slammed door. Just the sound of a suitcase rolling down the hallway. A brief pause at the threshold, and then silence. I didn't watch her leave. I sat in the living room with the blinds open and the TV off, staring at nothing. I expected to feel something. Anger, grief, relief. Instead, I felt hollow. Like someone had pulled the color out of my life and left the outlines behind. My mother stopped by that weekend. She didn't say, I told you so. She didn't need to. She just walked in, looked around at the vacuumed carpet and the spotless countertops, and understood everything. She's gone, I said. I know, my mother replied. And I'm sorry. You warned me. I hoped I was wrong. I nodded. I hoped you were too. We sat on the porch in silence, sipping coffee. She didn't push me to talk. That's what I appreciated about her. She understood some wounds don't need words. They need space. Finally, she asked, what are you going to do now? I shrugged. Start over. You sure? Yeah. Then make sure you start better, she said gently. Don't let what she did change who you are. I knew what she meant. I'd been angry. Still was. But I didn't want to carry that with me forever. I'd seen men in the military broken by betrayal. Men who never trusted again. Who saw enemies in every shadow. I didn't want to become that. I spent the next few weeks undoing what was left of her. Packed the rest of her things. Donated what she didn't take. Deleted her playlists from the stereo system. Removed her contact from my phone, not blocked. Just gone. Like she never belonged there in the first place. The room smelled different without her. The silence stopped hurting. It became a companion. And one evening, weeks after she had vanished from my life, I found the blouse. The same navy one she wore that night. The one that lingered in my memory like the closing note of a sad song. It was still in the laundry bin. Unwashed. Forgotten. I held it for a moment, and then tossed it in the trash. Life moved on. It didn't ask for permission. I got up the next day. Then the next. I went back to training in the mornings, running the neighborhood before the sun came up. The old rhythm returned. Boots hitting pavement, breath even, mind clear. It was the same discipline that got me through war zones, and now it was guiding me out of something just as personal. Emily never came back. Not physically, not emotionally, not even as a voicemail on a bad day. She faded. Her presence erased itself over time, like chalk washed from concrete in the rain. Mutual friends dropped their loyalty quietly, like embarrassed diplomats choosing a side. I let them. I didn't need allies. I needed peace. The divorce finalized in May. No fight, no drawn-out battle. Just paperwork, a judge's signature, and a notification from my attorney. It's done. Funny how years of a shared life can end with 2 words in an email. I didn't attend the final hearing. Didn't need to. There was no reason to stand in front of a stranger in a robe and explain why my marriage was a ghost. I didn't want anyone's sympathy. I wasn't wounded. I was awake. A few weeks later, I ran into someone from her office. Lisa. She looked surprised to see me in the hardware store, but her smile was kind. She moved, she said unprompted. Took a new job in Charlotte. I nodded. She doesn't talk about it, Lisa added. About you. About what happened. I nodded again. She hesitated, then offered a quiet, almost regretful. She's not the same either. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need it. By summer, I had repainted the bedroom, got rid of the photos, rearranged the furniture. Not because I wanted to erase her, but because I wanted to remind myself that I was allowed to live a life that didn't include her anymore. One day, I came across the old notebook I kept during those weeks of suspicion. I flipped through it. Notes, times, inconsistencies, red flags. All of it methodical. All of it painfully precise. I read it for 5 minutes, then dropped it in the fireplace. Let it burn. I didn't need the record. The memories were enough. And yet, in all of it, the pain wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the lies. It was the slow realization that the person I'd built a life with, someone I once would have taken a bullet for, had slowly, carefully, walked away from the man who kept coming home to her. But I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. Because in the end, I still had something she had given away without realizing its worth. Myself.